When I hear these quotes and this messaging from President Trump, I'm reminded of the national interest waiver. And I think that the former president is alluding to some sort of immigration reform that would continue to build upon the national interest waiver and potentially even create a new avenue to streamline high-skilled immigration to the United States. So there's some very interesting news coming out of the Trump campaign. The former president was recently featured in an interview where he makes some very interesting remarks regarding his pro-immigration stance for students that are attending universities in the United States. Let's take a look.
What I want to do and what I will do is you graduate from a college, I think you should get automatically as part of your diploma a green card to be able to stay in this country. And that includes junior colleges too. Anybody graduates from a college, you go in there for 2 years or 4 years. If you graduate or you get a doctorate degree from a college, you should be able to stay in this country. And you know more stories than I do, but I know of stories where people graduated from a top college or from a college and they desperately wanted to stay here. They had a plan for a company, a concept, and they can't. They go back to India, they go back to China, they do the same basic company in those places, and they become multi-billionaires employing thousands and thousands of people, and it could have been done here.
When I actually watched this interview, what I thought about was that it appears that the Trump campaign recognizes the value of high-skilled immigration to the United States. And the United States has mechanisms in place to have high-skilled immigrants essentially have a smoother process of getting immigration benefits to the United States. One example is one immigration option called the national interest waiver. The national interest waiver is essentially a subcategory of the EB2 immigrant classification. And without getting into all the legalese, basically through normal methods of getting a green card through having a job offer in the United States, there's all these administrative hurdles that need to take place. An employer has to go through all these steps with the Department of Labor, and it's a very lengthy process and a lot of steps involved. And through the national interest waiver, there's a method of getting a green card in a far more streamlined manner if the individual is doing something in the United States that benefits the US. It's in the national interest for this individual to circumvent that whole process with the Department of Labor. And when I hear these quotes and this messaging from President Trump, I'm reminded of the national interest waiver. And I think that the former president is alluding to some sort of immigration reform that would continue to build upon the national interest waiver and potentially even create a new avenue to streamline high-skilled immigration to the United States. And I think about this in particular because in the interview, the former president is talking about college graduates. And to me, that indicates some degree of high skill or high level of education that can be deployed in the United States to benefit the nation. And it just reminds me a lot of the national interest waiver. And I believe that what this indicates to me is that I would expect that if this policy were to be implemented, it would look something like the way the national interest waiver functions, where there's a streamlined pathway to getting lawful permanent residence to the United States based on being an individual that's going to be performing work in the United States that's going to benefit the nation. It's going to be in the national interest for these individuals to stay in the United States and deploy their skills in the United States. So think about it. We have students that are coming to the United States. They're getting a world-class education at our top-level universities. They're becoming very talented people that are going to join the workforce. And without a method of them staying in the United States, they're taking all that value and all that skill back to their home country when all those skills and that value could be utilized in the United States and essentially deployed within the United States to provide value to the United States. And it appears that by the former president's remarks, he's acknowledging this, and in a future administration, he would want to implement a method to make sure that these individuals would have a streamlined pathway to remain in the US. So I was mentioning earlier, there actually already is a method for high-skilled workers to have a streamlined pathway to getting a green card to the United States. And the method is called the National Interest Waiver. We talked about it earlier. It's basically a special green card option where somebody can apply for a green card on their own without the need to have an employer, without the need to have a job offer. And in order to qualify, you have to demonstrate a number of things. Among them, you have to demonstrate what you're going to be doing in the United States has substantial merit and national importance. In addition, you have to demonstrate that you are somebody that is well positioned to advance what's called your proposed endeavor, what you plan to do in the United States. And third, you have to demonstrate that it's in the national interest for there to be a waiver of your requirement to have a job offer and for an employer to go through the labor certification process that we talked about earlier, where a U.S. employer works with the Department of Labor to demonstrate that they tried to hire a U.S. worker and were unable to do so. You might be wondering, am I eligible for a national interest waiver? To determine whether you're eligible or not, you should definitely have your specific credentials evaluated by an immigration attorney that handles EB-2 national interest waiver cases. At our firm, we regularly do evaluations of EB-2 national interest waiver candidates. We work with clients from all 50 states and worldwide, and we have a pretty streamlined approach for evaluating these types of cases. We have an easy to fill out online application. Simply go in, answer the various questions about what you plan to do in the United States, your background, your education. There's even a space for you to upload your CV, and then we look at that and we give you our impressions. We provide this initial evaluation free of charge.